Good morning. It's quite a roster of people you have coming to speak with you today. I'm honored to be in their midst, and the people that you mentioned, both of the secretaries and others. I'm most honored, as I said this morning to a smaller group, I think upstairs, I'm most honored to be with the general and flag officers in this room, most notably General Shelton, who for me is as one of many captains in a big army. You, General, represent, I think, what's the best in the United States military and the U.S. Army, and I'm honored to be sharing a microphone with you today. As I said to you this morning, I should just sit down and listen to you and not be making a speech. Ritu, Liz, thank you for what you do. Thank you for inviting me. I know I'm only invited probably because Andy Amsler works for you, and he used to work for me. I'm embarrassing one of the staff members here who helped get me elected Attorney General. But thank you for having me and thinking of me and being here. You know, the USGLC, I appreciate all the rank and file and the staff for having me as well. And I want to also, before I begin, make a special thanks to the veterans in this room for your willingness to serve, whether you're continuing to serve or have served. As the Admiral mentioned, as an elected official in the state of Delaware, a place I love, as a captain in a big army in the Delaware Army National Guard, as a father, thank you for what you do, for your willingness to do what you do on behalf of this nation, both here on the home front, but as well as overseas, especially over the last decade as we fight two wars. As Admiral mentioned, serving with the men and women in the U.S. Armed Forces, whether they be sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, it's been the greatest honor of my life to wear the uniform of the U.S. Army. I'm honored to be the Attorney General, but I'm most honored to be a captain in the Army. I thought I understood what it meant to wear a uniform, General. I'd been wearing it about 7 years before I was deployed. And I thought I knew what it meant. I work with police officers in our state. I've been in law enforcement in various capacities most of my life. And I thought I understood what it meant to serve. I didn't until I was deployed and put on my boots every morning and serve with the brave women and men that have served under your command and I've served with. I also got a better appreciation and understood something that I really didn't understand. And that is the effect of that these wars and service has on moms and dads, grandparents, sons and daughters. Average age of our unit was 41 years old. We had grandfathers and grandmothers in our unit. And it's without the bravery of the moms, dads, grandparents, brothers, sisters, kids, home, none of this would be possible. So to you veterans in the audience, thank you to you. You all, thank goodness for our country, chose to do what you do. But really, the people that make that possible are your loved ones. And so a special thanks. I don't go to an audience, General, without thanking the families of those that serve. As many of you know, serving in the war zone gives you a unique perspective on many things. Here in Washington, there's a lot of talk about smart power, and this is the leading voice in notions of smart power. I've heard the theoretical debates. I'd like to listen to more of them and what you all have to say, and I've read what many writers have had to say about smart power. Those discussions are key. The discussions that are about to take place today are key, but it is also important, and I hope maybe this will be part of the reason why I'm here and why you've called on veterans to speak to this. It's important to see those theories tested in action, which is why it is so critical that veterans are here making their voices heard on that petition to my left. Like so many of you, I've seen these ideas put into action in real time. In Iraq or anywhere else, brave women and men are deployed. There's never a question of America's military might. You see it in the MRAPs that we now have overseas, walking to the mess hall with a M16 strapped around your shoulder or a 9mm on your hip. And you see it in what is the best trained fighting force that this world has ever seen. But military might, and I think I'm preaching to the choir here when I say this, but military might by itself is not enough. Simply having the best technology and the greatest and best trained fighting force the world has known is not enough to protect our national security and our values as they're projected around the world. America must recognize that substantial and fundamental need to embrace, as the Admiral referenced, diplomacy and development, and that this is a multifaceted project. The folks that I've served with on the ground in Iraq understand this stark reality. As one captain, as I said, in a very big army, understand the wisdom of this approach from my experience. When I talk to veterans, this is not a controversial notion, as I mentioned to Liz this morning. There should be, and I don't believe there is, anything controversial about the very important ideas you're about to discuss today. There's no resistance to the bottom line that using smart power simply works. It buttresses our missions, and it makes America more secure, at least from my perspective and the perspective of those that I've served. In my experience, as I saw how smart power works, mostly with respect to the rule of law. It's only one aspect of smart power I recognize, and I would submit, and I'm prone to go off my text here, I would submit that rule of law is a component part of each of the 3 Ds, and one that keenly interests me as a JAG as well as an Attorney General, and one that I've become familiar with. In 2001, after the war in Kosovo, I spent several months there as a Department of Justice civilian liaison. I worked with the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, with lawyers from Germany, Italy, France, from all over Europe. And our charge was, among other things, and I was a small part in this larger project, to set up and help repair and stand up a functioning criminal justice system in Kosovo. One of our jobs, working through the OSCE, working through the State Department, and then detailed to the OSCE, was also to craft a very simple, important thing that has to do with all the things I think you all talk about, and that is how we train the Kosovar civilian police force. You had police officers coming from 50-some-odd countries, getting off planes from Bangladesh to Bozeman, Montana, and they didn't have a manual about how they go about doing their business. So as simple a task as that was what I was put to work on as a Department of Justice employee, along with JAGs and military and NGO folks in theater in Kosovo. In many ways, we were literally restarting a judicial system in a country where the rule of law had been tragically ignored or suppressed by Slobodan Milosevic for basically a decade. What we did, and again, I was just a very small part of what many people did, and some probably in this room, was to really put smart power to work. I saw it in action when I was in Iraq as well. There, as a JAG officer, JAGs, not I was a trial counsel. I was charged with really enforcing the Uniform Code of Military Justice. But JAGs there were there to make sure that the courts, and they are there to this day, to make sure the courts all throughout Iraq are there to do justice, to make sure that the abuse of power is fought at every level. It's something that we take for granted here, but in the aftermath of Saddam's fall, there are many legitimate questions that can be asked. Could Iraqis overcome their ethnic prejudice? Was it possible for a Sunni judge, for instance, to fairly try a Shia? Could we count on Shia prosecutors to treat a Kurd the same way that they did a Shia? Simple questions of justice that are basic to our justice system, but are somewhat difficult questions presented when I was there and I think to this day. The goal is simple, but it's crucial to any legitimate legal system. We had to make sure that justice was fair for all, that the abuse of power was fought at every level. As you all well know, we are headed in the right direction, at least I believe we're headed in the right direction in Iraq on these fronts and many others. The Iraqi people, as they say, are standing up as we are standing down. The American military is ready to make the changes, I believe, to emphasize smart power, and I've seen that up close and personal, both in Kosovo, as I said, and Iraq. I might make a note in terms of you can know where I stand as a JAG. I'm assigned to a signal brigade that served with over in Iraq. The JAG school headquartered in Charlottesville, Virginia, and much around here in this city, is placing much more emphasis on ideas of the rule of law, and have been for a while, and have entire sections in brigade headquarters is dedicated to rule of law, where they work every day not just with Afghanis and Iraqis, but also NGOs and judges and diplomats on how we stand up a functioning, incredible civil justice and criminal justice system in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have to give credit where credit is due, all the way up the chain from, most importantly, I think, General Petraeus, his JAGs, who he relies heavily on, and our leaders have recognized the need for what I believe is this broader strategy focusing on not just defense, but diplomacy and development. The troops should also be given credit serving in Iraq, from the youngest E2 to the most senior E9 to colonels and lieutenants in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places overseas. They have seen the ideas that you have been a leading advocate for put into effect and been not just effective in the projection of U.S. force around for our national security interest, but as I made the point today earlier to Liz and to General Shelton, which is a point he knows all too well, it has a very practical reality. And that is, it's not only important for the projections of our force around the world, but it's important to keep their soldiers alive day to day in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and around this world. We ask so much of our soldiers, but we also ask them to be diplomats. They're warrior diplomats. They should have more diplomats to work with them at their side. And that's part of what you are about and why I'm so honored to be here. Our soldiers saw smart power in action. They saw the need for the training on non-military tools, the need for additional diplomats and developmental projects. And their leaders, I think, are listening, at least from my perspective in the U.S. Army. People like you, those who stand up and say there's more to America's foreign policy than the awesome power, will always have and are making an incredible difference in the lives, day-to-day lives of our soldiers, but also, I think, in the long-term interest of our foreign policy as we move forward. I would submit to you, and it's easy for a 41-year-old guy from Delaware to say this, but I think you're having an incredible impact on the future of how we conduct our foreign policy and project our force around the world. So I'm here not just to thank you, but to tell you from someone who has seen it up close and personal, as many of you have, it works. It works. So keep up the work, and I look forward to joining you some other day if you'll ever have me back. Thank you very much.